Hello everybody, my name is Karam Marani, and today we will be diving into the movie The Caine Mutiny and discussing several themes from the film that relate to organizational behavior. First off, we will be discussing how authority, leadership styles, and group dynamics play crucial roles in organizational settings, all of which are reflected by events on the USS Caine and all throughout the movie. Let's start off by briefly setting the scene and explaining the movie and some general background. The Caine Mutiny takes place during World War II, and it centers around a group of Navy men or naval crew under the leadership of Lieutenant Commander Queeg, who throughout the movie exhibits increasingly erratic behavior, sort of paranoid. His leadership style and decisions spark rebellion among his crew, who sort of like incites them to perform the Caine Mutiny. This leads to a court-martial that becomes sort of like the central part of the story. By really looking into this story and examining the dynamics, we can uncover and find valuable lessons about leadership and organizational behavior. First off, we can start by discussing authority and power. In the Caine Mutiny, we have Lieutenant Commander Queeg, who I mentioned earlier. He wields all the authority and sort of the power, being the commander and the lieutenant on the ship, in sort of an almost tyrannical manner. He's obsessed with rules and rigid discipline and doing everything by the book, and oftentimes, acting out of paranoia. One of the most notable moments that stood out throughout the film was when Queeg's obsession with missing strawberries or strawberry shortcake leads to him making irrational decisions that sort of undermine his credibility with the crew. It sort of gets them to start to question his authority. This sort of sets the stage for the mutiny. It's the first real thing that they started to question about him and started to get everyone to question him. From an organizational behavior perspective, Queeg's leadership sort of highlights how an authoritarian style can lead to, disengagement and dissatisfaction among employees and coworkers. In organizational theory, this is often referred to as transactional leadership, where leaders rely on strict control, rules, and penalties to sort of guide and lead their employees. While transactional leadership can be effective in some high-control environments, most of the time it often leads to resentment and lack of loyalty when leaders fail to inspire and sort of empower their teams. It kind of does the opposite for employees. In the case of Queeg, his lack of trust in his subordinates or fellow naval crew and failure to adapt his leadership style kind of caused a breakdown in the team's cohesion. It sort of started to get them to question his authority. And in most cases, leaders who are unable to balance authority with, empathy and respect for their employees may face similar challenges in real-world organizations. It's critical to understand the impact of authority and employee morale and motivation. That's sort of a big thing. Second, this brings us to our second theme, leadership styles. As we saw in the movie, Queeg's leadership was primarily transactional. He demanded compliance. It was his way or no, I forget the exact quote. Something around those lines. We also see contrasting leadership styles in the character of Lieutenant Mark and Keith, who serve as alternatives to Queeg's approach. They sort of are more relaxed, and because they're used to their old lieutenant commander. Lieutenant Merrick, I think I said Mark earlier. Lieutenant Merrick, who ultimately relieves Queeg of command during the mutiny. He was the one that sort of took the power and called the shots when the original mutiny took place. Takes a more situational approach to leadership. His decision to step in is based on his sort of understanding that Queeg's leadership is not only hurting the morale of the crew, but also sort of putting them in harm's way, where his decisions on the ship might have led to the boat capsizing and maybe even the death of some of the naval crew. This represents a shift towards transformational leadership, where leaders motivate and inspire followers, focusing on the greater good of the group rather than strict compliance to rules and really like following everything by the book. Transformational leadership emphasizes vision, motivation, and the ability to influence and engage others on an emotional level. Merrick, while never being like a perfect guy, not the smartest, shows that an effective leader must be adaptable and has to make decisions based on the circumstances around them and their environment. In organizational behavior, transformational leadership is linked to higher levels of employee satisfaction, engagement, and performance. It encourages creativity amongst the team and helps the team navigate through like sort of harder challenges, more complex challenges by sort of fostering a sense of trust and empowerment within like the team. So comparing Queeg's transactional style and Merrick's more compassionate and easygoing adaptive leadership illustrates how different approaches can impact both the effectiveness and the morale of its members. So finally, our third and final topic, let's explore group dynamics and conflict resolution. As the tension between Queeg and his crew sort of intensifies and gets stronger, as sort of, like I said, intensifies is probably the perfect word. We see how the group behavior evolves and how they start to change. Like in the beginning, initially, the crew follows Queeg's orders despite their growing like discontent and not really like they're starting to get a little bit agitated. But as Queeg's leadership becomes sort of more erratic, they begin to openly question his decisions with one another. This shift in group behavior sort of highlights important concepts in organizational behavior, especially regarding how groups respond to leadership under stress. In the film, the crew reaches a breaking point when their collective experience under Queeg's command becomes sort of like unbearable. They no longer want to deal with what he's saying or like everything that they have experienced from like all his commands and all his back talk. The concept of groupthink is relative there, where like in an attempt to avoid conflict or maintain cohesion, the group may suppress dissent or fail to consider alternative viewpoints. However, as tension escalates on the ship, the group begins to like openly challenge or question his authority. The mutiny sort of represents a radical attempt at conflict resolution. It was certainly a bit crazy, but you gotta do what you gotta do. It also opens up an important discussion about how organizations handle disagreements. In a healthy organizational environment, conflicts are addressed constructively through like open communication and collaboration with the team. On the other hand, when conflicts are ignored or suppressed, they can build up, leading to a crisis or even rebellion, sort of portrayed by the Caine Mutiny. Effective conflict resolution in organizations often involves addressing the underlying issues that contribute to the group's dissatisfaction and sort of ensuring employees feel heard and respected and finding collaborative solutions where the whole team can get involved. Queeg's failure to sort of manage conflict and listened to his crew led to the complete breakdown of the chain of command on the Caine. This is sort of a powerful reminder for organizations to invest in conflict management strategies to avoid negative outcomes. In conclusion, or a summary to everything that has been said, the Caine Mutiny provides us with a compelling, very compelling case study on organizational behavior. We've discussed how authority and power dynamics shape leadership effectiveness and the impacts of leadership styles on employee morale and the crucial role that group dynamics and conflict resolution play in organizational success. Queeg's authoritarian style ultimately created a sort of toxic environment that led to a rebellion or the mutiny, while Lieutenant Merrick's more adaptive approach showed how transformational leadership can motivate and guide a team through a crisis. The film also reminds us of the importance of addressing conflicts before they escalate, fostering an environment of communication, trust, and collaboration. By reflecting or looking upon the lessons from the Caine Mutiny, we can gain valuable insights into how to manage and lead organizations more effectively, fostering a positive and productive organizational culture. Thank you. Again, I'm Karam Rani, and this was my TED Talk.